Hello VC, Michael, Clash City Rocker, with a different kind of video this week. This one not so much centered on vinyl, but rather a experience I had when I was a stagehand working at a theater, specifically about Stevie Ray Vaughan and his last show, which happened to be at Alpine Valley Music Theater, which is in where I'm currently living, which is in Wisconsin. But before I get to that story about Stevie Ray and Alpine Valley and his last show, I'd like to thank the people who have subscribed so far, who've watched these videos, who've liked what I am attempting to do. Again, my goal is to engage the VC, fellow music aficionados, lovers, passionate people about music, vinyl collectors. And the goal is to communicate with you through the comments. So please comment. Please let me know what you think of the videos that I'm doing. So, as I've mentioned in the past, I've been a huge music fan my entire life. And when I was younger, it was mainly about buying music. But when I got into my teens, I started to go to shows, and which was great because you would go to these bands and see these live shows and kind of bounce around a little bit and dance. And through that, you end up meeting some bands. And I ended up working for a band, eventually just banging gear with them and hanging out. And then I ended up being their sound man. And they were a touring alternative, indie, punk, hard rock, whatever kind of band. And then I connected with a sound man for a bigger independent alternative rock punk band. And he kind of showed me the ropes. And with that, I started doing shows, pretty big shows at national touring bands mainly. And eventually I ended up at Alpine Valley Music Theater. And so my first show there, and this might be a little hard to show, was this one, Madonna, Who's That Girl tour. And I started to save some of the soft passes that I got at shows. Now, probably about 10% of the shows I would get a soft pass. Most of the time, my house pass was enough. And I didn't always get them, but when I did, I'd keep them. And I would do some fairly big acts, but this video is about specifically Stevie Ray Vaughan at Alpine Valley. So this story begins in 1988 when this guy, Eric Clapton, came to Alpine Valley on his Crossroads tour, which was the tour that he was doing to support the box set that had just come out, the 6-volume or 6-record Crossroads box set, which covers his entire career. And then 2 years later, he came to Alpine Valley and he played 2 nights. He played August 25th and he played August 26th. Now, these were different kinds of shows because they were kind of cool in that. And here's my low-tech version again. So it's an evening with Eric Clapton and his band with special guests Stevie Ray Vaughan, Double Trouble, the Robert Cray Band, featuring the Memphis Horns. And on this one, it doesn't say it, but the Fabulous Thunderbirds played, and so did Jeff Healey. So it was really great. Now, I never got to work any of the Crossroads Blues festivals that Clapton's done over the years, but that was pretty close. And so here's a picture of 4 of the principals there. Oh, I forgot. And Buddy Guy. So there's Robert Cray. There's Clapton. There's Stevie Ray Vaughan. There's his brother, Jimmy Vaughan. And that was the concert. So the way it worked out was there was... Jimmy Vaughan played later with other people, but it was Robert Cray and then Stevie Ray Vaughan and then Eric Clapton, and then they all played together. Buddy Guy was there. Jeff Healey was there. And this is a picture, kind of not so great, of them all on stage during the encore, which is when they were jamming on Sweet Home Chicago. And while I'm holding this, I'm going to show you this, and you guys can look on this on eBay because I just found it this week, where somebody is selling a Alpine Valley, and look, they've got it PSA graded here, which is just hilarious that would be something. PSA graded Alpine Valley ticket stub for that concert, and they are selling it for, yes, $1,500. Now, Do you want to pay $1,500 for a ticket stub? Well, if you do, I've got something a little bit better. So stick with me on this story. So again, the concert was Eric Clapton, and it was 1990, and this album had just come out, Journeyman, and it's a decent record from 1989. And what's interesting, and here's the track list on this, is he played a whole bunch of songs from this record as part of his set. So he played Pretending, he played No Alibis, he played Running on Faith, and then he played Bad Love, and he played Old Love. He played 5 songs from this record, which is interesting, along with the other kind of standards that he's been known to play. So it was a ostensibly an Eric Clapton show, but he had these other people on it. And again, he had Buddy Guy was there. And it's been 35 years, so I don't exactly remember who played stand-on alone sets other than Robert Cray and Jimmy Vaughan or Stevie Ray Vaughan and Eric Clapton. But Buddy Guy was there. He's jamming on Sweet Home Alabama. By the way, this is a great record. Buddy Guy, Stone Crazy. I've seen it under different names. This one is on the Alligator label, which is kind of cool. Blues-based label. And then, of course, other people who made guest appearances were this guy, I'll recognize him, Jimmy Vaughan, Stevie Ray's brother, from this band, Fabulous Thunderbirds. And then this guy, I think everybody's got this in their record collection. Better record than people probably remember because it got so popular. But Robert Cray's Smoking Gun song was very ubiquitous, and there he is with his band. So I was lucky enough then to see Clapton play in 88 and then twice in 90, but he was playing at like a much more passionate, like it was just more guitar. It was less laid back, kind of Clapton, you know, that we all know, that kind of 80s glossy kind of thing. It was more rocking. And I really think that a lot of it had to do with playing on a venue with this guy, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and this is his first album. And there he is with John Hammond. I love the back of this. Everybody looks so happy, so positive. This is the first record, and somebody paid $2.75 for this. But I first got to know Stevie Ray Vaughan through this record. And again, I'm a massive Bowie fan. If you watch my video on Record Store Day, I seem to have bought like 50 Record Store Day David Bowie albums. And so Stevie Ray Vaughan, I guess Bowie ran into him at the Montreux Jazz Festival and was blown away by his playing and asked him to do a record with him. This is produced by Nile Rodgers. Everybody knows it. What's interesting about this is Bowie used to do at least an album a year. And the last one he did was in 1980 with Scary Monsters. And then 3 years later, he finally came up with this one. And that was basically my entire high school experience with no new Bowie music. And he did a play. He did Elephant Man. He did some soundtrack work. He was in movies. He was in The Great Hunger. He did Cat People. But anyways, Stevie Ray Vaughan plays on this. He plays on Let's Dance. He plays on China Girl. And he plays on... what am I skipping? Doesn't matter. But he plays on a bunch of the songs on this particular record. And then my favorite of the Stevie Ray Vaughan ones is this one, his second one, which is Couldn't Stand the Weather. And somebody had paid $3.95 for this one. And it's got his amazing version of Voodoo Child, which is my favorite Hendrix song by any measure. So great show. Amazing to be able to see all of these guitar players again. Jeff Healey, Robert Cray, Buddy Guy, Eric Clapton, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimmy Vaughan. And again, those of you who've seen my guitar videos realize that I've been showing classical fingerstyle jazz, but I love rock guitar. I love blues guitar. And this show was absolutely tremendous. So first night, 25th, awesome, great. Cover the gear. I head home. I come back the next day. And those of you who don't work in the music world might not know how this works. But when you're a stagehand, there's different calls that you get. So there's a load in, obviously, which pretty much everybody is. And those are even stages. So like the initial, when the trucks get broken, and then the riggers and the lighting. And then there's another wave of people that come in. And then around lunchtime, a lot of those people are let go. And then the people who are working the show stay. And you want to be one of the people who's working the show because you make more money. So you want to put in those 14, 16, 18-hour days because you are going to be in overtime. So I was pretty much a vet at Alpine in 1990. And that day, luckily, I was not. I did get a show call, but I didn't have to run a spotlight, which I hated to do, but I've done a ton. And I was on the deck crew. And so what I was responsible for, and a number of other people, was doing the changeovers. So when one band was done, you break down their gear, move it off the stage, and then get the next band's gear on. And so that night, because it was the last show, we broke down Stevie Ray Vaughan's rig and his guitar, his equipment, and I can't remember all of it, but I think it was me and just one other stagehand, and I know him. And their guitar tech, and I can't remember which of the other Vaughan people were there. And so there's this thing about being a stagehand that you run into, materials or swag or whatever on deck that people find collectible. And I tried not to be one of those guys. Like I wasn't going to grabbing drumsticks. I wasn't grabbing set lists. But occasionally I would pick up a guitar pick. Try to do it without anybody looking. But so in '88, when Clapton was there, I picked up this guitar pick from the stage. It says 25th anniversary on one side. It says EC 88 on the other. And I also picked up this one, which is pretty cool. So Eric Clapton on this side. A little hard, getting fuzzy. And then on this side, it said Crossroads. Now, again, I didn't want people to see me doing this, so I had some elaborate ruse. But anyways, we're loading out the gear for Stevie Ray Vaughan into like a rider truck. And I believe the guitar tech's name is Renee Martinez. And the buddy I was working with had taken all of the guitar picks, all of the Stevie Ray Vaughan guitar picks off of his Marshall stack and put them in his pocket. I don't know if you know about this, but when people are playing guitar players on their mic stand, they often have taped a series of picks in case they need one, or a pick guard where they can just pull them and they can grab them. But oftentimes they just have them on top of their amps, sometimes with some duct tape. And my buddy had taken all of the Stevie Ray Vaughan guitar picks. And so we're pushing the gear towards the truck, and the guitar tech notices that all the picks are gone. Well, it's obviously us. We've taken them. And he's like, oh man, I need those picks, for the next show. I don't mind if you have one, but you got to give me those back. And it was kind of awkward. He could have kicked us off the deck. And my buddy, he said, yeah, he copped to it. And he gave the guy the picks back. And the guy said, here, you can have one. And then he asked me if I wanted one. I said, no, I'm fine. I'm good. Because I didn't need one, because I had picked one up off the deck. So this is a Stevie Ray Vaughan show used, I don't know, used in baseball memorabilia, call them game used, show used Stevie Ray Vaughan guitar pick from his last show from the night that he unfortunately died. And so the question I have for you, VC, if a ticket stub is worth $1,500, how much is this worth? And yeah, I don't have video of me picking this up off the deck. Nobody took a picture of me doing this. And so it's my word, I guess, against the world. But ultimately, it was such a tragic day. It was such a sad day. I miss Stevie Ray Vaughan's music. I'm glad I have this memento of the day. was a crazy day. There was a huge storm. The power went out at one point when we were lowering the truss on the loadout. There's other stories about what happened otherwise. But, so VC, I've always been into it about the music. I like collecting the records, but for 25 years, I worked in the business, and I saw some of these great performers play, including on that day when I was lucky enough to see this show, actually two of them, An Evening with Eric Clapton and his band, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Double Trouble, Robert Cray Band with the Memphis Horns, along with Jeff Healey, Buddy Guy, and Jimmy Vaughan. So, peace, Michael, Clash City Rocker.